the shadow behind the curtain. It was almost dusk when Sarah dragged her suitcase up the narrow stairway to her new apartment. The building was old, its walls cracked, its ceiling fan whirring like an insect trapped in the dark. But the rent was cheap, and she needed a quiet place near her university to finish her final semester. The landlord, a frail old man with hollow eyes, handed her the keys. "You'll like this place," he said in a voice roughened by age. "Just one thing." Sarah looked up. "Yes." He pointed at a corner of the room where a thick velvet curtain hung from ceiling to floor. It was old, heavy, and strangely out of place against the bare concrete walls. "Don't touch that curtain," he muttered. "It's best left the way it is." Sarah gave a nervous laugh. "Why? Is it hiding a ghost?" The landlord's eyes didn't move. "Something like that." When he left, Sarah shook her head. She'd heard all sorts of stories about haunted houses and cursed rooms, but this was just superstition. She ran her hand across the curtain. The fabric was cold and slightly damp, as though it had been hanging there for years without sunlight. Still, she ignored the uneasy feeling creeping into her chest. It was just a curtain, after all. The apartment was eerily silent at night. Only the faint hum of traffic filtered through the cracked window. Sarah sat at her desk, headphones on, studying late into the night. Around midnight, she felt a faint tap-tap-tap sound coming from behind the curtain. She paused her music and turned around. Nothing. Maybe a rat, she thought. But the sound came again, deliberate, rhythmic, almost like knocking. Her breath caught. "Hello?" she whispered. Silence. She turned off her lamp, leaving only the faint streetlight spilling through the cracks. The curtain stood still. She stared at it for a long time, her heartbeat echoing in her ears. Then, convincing herself it was her imagination, she went to bed. That night, she dreamed of a shadow standing behind the curtain, its hand pressed against the fabric, reaching toward her. Days passed. Sarah tried to ignore the strange noises, but small things started to unsettle her. Her mirror, which faced the curtain, sometimes reflected something dark standing beside it. When she turned around, nothing. Her phone camera glitched. Whenever she pointed it toward the curtain, the screen turned static, as if something interfered with the signal. Once, while brushing her hair, she noticed the curtain sway slightly, though the window was closed. She felt eyes on her, always from that corner. One evening, as Sarah was locking her door, the old woman from the next apartment peeked out. Her eyes were sunken, her voice trembling. "You're the new girl," she said softly. "You live in room 6? "Yes," Sarah smiled. "I moved in last week." The woman's face darkened. "You hear anything strange?" Sarah hesitated. "Sometimes." "Why?" The woman leaned closer, whispering. "The last tenant heard it too. Said there was someone behind that curtain." Sarah froze. The woman continued. "Police came when she went missing. They never found her. Only her phone lying right near that curtain." Sarah's mouth went dry. "Do you know what happened?" The woman's eyes filled with fear. "Just don't look behind it." And she shut the door. Sarah tried to laugh it off, but the words stuck in her mind like thorns. Don't look behind. It was a Thursday night when the storm hit. Rain lashed the windows, and thunder rattled the building. The lights flickered again and again before dying completely, leaving the apartment in total darkness. Sarah lit a candle and placed it on the table. The flame danced wildly, casting long, trembling shadows on the walls. Then she heard it, a whisper, faint and broken, from behind the curtain. Sarah, her blood ran cold. She froze. "Who's there?" No answer. The candle flickered, and the curtain moved just slightly, as if someone brushed against it from the other side. Sarah's phone was in her hand. She opened the camera and pointed it toward the curtain. The screen glitched, then suddenly cleared. What she saw made her heart stop. On the screen, a hand-shaped shadow pressed against the fabric, long fingers, too thin, too dark to belong to a human. The whisper came again, louder. "Let me out." Sarah stumbled back, dropping the phone. The candle blew out, plunging the room into pitch black. Something shuffled behind the curtain. Slow, dragging steps. When the storm finally subsided near dawn, Sarah sat frozen in the corner, gripping her phone. Sunlight crept through the window. The curtain looked ordinary again, calm, still, harmless. But she had had enough. Her heart pounded as she grabbed the edge of the fabric. "I'm ending this," she muttered. She pulled the curtain aside. Behind it wasn't a window but a solid brick wall. The plaster was cracked and wet, as if something had been leaking from inside. And then she saw them, faint fingerprints, smeared across the surface. Nails marks. Scratches. Sarah stepped closer. The marks were fresh. Suddenly a drop of cold water, or something thicker, landed on her hand. She looked up. The ceiling above the wall was stained dark red. A whisper echoed right behind her ear. "You shouldn't have looked." The curtain snapped back into place on its own, swallowing her in darkness. The next morning, the landlord arrived to collect rent. The door was open. Sarah was gone. Her bag lay near the bed. The candle had melted down to a puddle. Her phone was still recording. The video showed the curtain still, silent, unmoving. Then, at the 2:47 mark, the fabric rippled slightly. A faint outline of a face pressed against it, Sarah's face. Her eyes wide, mouth open as if screaming silently. The screen turned black. The apartment stayed empty for a few weeks before it was rented again to a new tenant, Hina, a cheerful young nurse. The landlord never mentioned anything strange, just handed over the keys and reminded her, "Don't move the curtain. It's part of the wall." On her first night, Hina noticed how the curtain gave the room a warm, cozy look. She even smiled at her reflection in the mirror across from it. But as she unpacked, her phone sitting on the table started recording on its OW and the faint reflection. Behind the curtain, a silhouette began to form. A woman's figure, her face pale, her hair falling over her shoulders. It was Sarah. The camera caught a faint whisper, almost like a sigh. "Help me." The screen glitched and cut to black. People say room 6 in that old building is still rented to students every year, and one stays for long. Sometimes, tenants complain of hearing soft tapping at night. Others say they wake to find the curtain slightly open, as if someone had looked out or looked in. But the strangest thing is that every new tenant's phone eventually starts recording on its own, always pointed toward the curtain, always ending the same way, with a shadow standing just behind it.